Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3 Chairhead bringing another awesome movie review, and technically this is actually the first double movie review I've actually done on my channel, so that's pretty awesome. I'm here to introduce once again my brother from last year, as we will be reviewing Final Fantasy 15 Kingsglaive together, which we actually saw a couple days ago, but we had to celebrate our birthdays back to back together, which was pretty awesome. So welcome again, just like last year, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of you in the near future. So we're going to give our initial thoughts. So for starters, Final Fantasy 15 Kingsglaive takes place during the events of the up-and-coming game coming out in November, Final Fantasy 15, but it kind of takes more of a backseat type of approach from the main plot and pretty much explains the events that will be happening while we were going on the journey with Noctis and his boys. And pretty much, just without spoiling too much, what you have is you have two kingdoms. I like to call it a kingdom of machines and a kingdom of magic, and a peace treaty is set in motion in order to end the war between them, but a plot is then revealed to involve a princess, and it is up to the Kingsglaive unit in order to uncover this plot before the peace treaty can be pretty much disrupted and chaos can then once again erupt the flames of war. So with that, that is just the initial plot, just without spoiling too much. And in terms of the cast, I can't really think of everybody's names off the top of my head, but I think overall, I think we could both agree everyone pretty much did a pretty phenomenal job with their performances. Though I do find it a little bit odd that you have professional actors playing significant roles of characters in this film, and yet you have different voice actors for them in the game, so I think that might be a little bit confusing. So I've never actually done a two-way review, so we're going to keep it simple and just go into what we both liked about the film and then what we didn't like. So, bro, why don't you go first? Why don't you tell me, what did you like most about it?
I definitely like the action.
Yeah.
Like the last 20 minutes, I think.
You didn't like the action like all throughout, just the last 20 minutes?
Well, it's just the last 20 minutes was more intense. The action in the beginning was really good.
Yeah.
Just like they amped it up at the end of the movie.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of the climax, which I guess most movies do anyway. I mean, so yeah, I agree. I think the action. I thought that the visuals were pretty solid. I think at times, I almost forgot I was watching a total CGI movie, which tells you that we've made a massive jump from Final Fantasy Advent Children, which that's still a great film. I really enjoyed it, but you can definitely see the improvements in terms of the amount of detail that they put into their CGI images and character models, and just the facial expressions and the environment, and just it almost looked like a live action film. I'm kind of scared we're going to get to a point where we can actually have total CGI movies and they'll just look just as real as actual live action films. What else did you like?
Everything. A few plot points, I guess. But other than that, it was a great movie.
I thought it was great, but it could have been better. Another thing that I personally really enjoyed is I like that it explains the kind of the political situation of what was going on in the story, which a lot of people really hate politics. I actually am a really big fan of politics. You think you have to have a real solid, or at least a basic understanding of politics in order to understand just the seriousness of the environment of what is going on. And I kind of like that they went into depth and explained that. And believe it or not, that's actually something that the Star Wars prequels did. I mean, they could have done a better job, and a lot of people hated that they talked about politics, but I think that if you add those elements into your story, then you can actually make your story much more genuine and have a much more realistic feeling to it, because whether you like to acknowledge it or not, politics does play an important role in your life, even if you don't like to openly discuss it or even think about it. But it is a very important role that plays into your lives. And I think another thing I really liked, I loved all the Easter eggs. I loved seeing a lot of classic Final Fantasy creatures, and there was one particular enemy in this movie that when I saw him, I was just like, anyone who was a big fan of Final Fantasy VI is going to freak out, because I didn't think to see this character. I'm not going to spoil who it was, but he's giant, purple, and has a lot of tentacles. And if you can figure out who that is from Final Fantasy VI, you're going to be pretty excited. He actually has not too much of a significant role in the film, but I think his cameo was very well handled and well timed. Anything else in terms of the positives that you got?
No. I mean, I just enjoyed the movie. Like, it really pulled me in.
Did it reach your expectations? Did you have
Oh.
high hopes for it? Was
I had like medium hopes. Like, I wasn't like super looking forward to it, but I wasn't like thinking it was going to be a crap movie.
I didn't think I knew it was going to be crappy because I think that despite you guys know my personal history with Square-Enix and their mistakes in the past, they've really made a serious comeback, and I've really enjoyed just about everything they're doing, and I absolutely love everything they're doing with this Final Fantasy 15 cinematic universe. I mean, they had this really awesome film, and I'm absolutely enjoying the Final Fantasy 15 Brotherhood anime series. I know the game just from the demos that we've played is going to be awesome, so I'm all for this universe. So that's yeah.
The ending credit, since it
I don't know why
sort
they
of ties it in more to the game, right?
I guess, but I didn't think it was really necessary because we already know what they were going to be doing during that scene. I mean, it wasn't anything we didn't already know.
If you're keeping up with it.
Well, if you're keeping up with it, but pretty much all the footage that we've seen of those characters has been consistent. Whether it's in the game or in this movie or even in the animated series, we've seen that shot of all of them together. We've seen that, so to see it like for a few seconds in, I guess, CGI movie style, it didn't really affect me too much. It's just like, you could have taken that out and that wouldn't have bothered me.
Or maybe that's where all the rest of the footage came from, since we've seen it before.
Probably.
They probably just pulled it right from there.
Yeah. Okay, so that does it for our positives. Now let's go into our negatives. Now, I actually think I have a little bit more negatives than my bro here. So, the first negative that I didn't like was a lot of the editing decisions. I really hated every time that a scene would fade to black. I think it felt too much like a cutscene. Cutscenes generally end like that. It had this tendency to, when it was transitioning from one scene to another, it would just fade to black. But then other scenes, it would just normally transition into the next scene like a regular film should do. And sometimes it didn't even make sense as to why it was fading to black. Like, it was literally like the same scene. It was fading in and out of black. And I thought that was just really, really distracting. And it even did that a few times near the end of the film. And I was like, why are we doing this? I mean, maybe they wanted to make it feel like mostly kind of like a video game cutscene and more like a CGI movie, but I think that it should have stayed entirely like a CGI movie because I just thought that was distracting. My next negative about it was it's kind of a semi-negative, but it kind of plays into how it will affect my playing of the game. And I think that it was probably a small mistake to have this movie take place during the events of 15. Because without going into spoilers, which I'll give you guys a heads up about spoilers at the end of the video, this movie did something where it was explaining events away from the main plot of the game, but because we now know what is going on in the background, we essentially know how the plot of the main game is mostly going to play out. It's going to play out in 3 acts. And I think that going into 15, that is really going to be affecting my experience of the game's story, because you know after watching this that while you're playing the game, these events are happening, and you know that what happens in this movie will directly and very significantly affect the game's storyline. And if you're smart enough, or if you can put the pieces together well enough, you probably will know how this game is going to play out. So it has a tendency of maybe spoiling things that we know are going to happen in the game. Another thing that I didn't also like was I don't think that we spent enough time with the Kingsglaive members. I think outside of Nyx, who was the main character of the film, we really didn't get too much character development from anybody else, and I thought some of the character motivations were really confusing. There's one character in particular who kind of is a double agent. I'm not going to say who it is, but when you hear his motivation for ostensibly betraying the kingdom, you're kind of wondering, wait a minute, if this is your whole motivation for betraying the kingdom, then why did you wait this long? I mean, you've been serving this person all this time, yet you hated him, and yet you waited all this time to do this. I think his motivation for his automatic heel turn just didn't really make much sense. And I have to say that I'm was a little bit disappointed with the character of Luna. I really thought she was going to have much more of a significant role. I know that I think Lena Headey from Game of Thrones, she said that her character was, strong and could handle herself. And she really didn't. I really thought she was going to have much more of, like, she can handle herself type of vibe, and she just kind of ended up being a typical kind of damsel in distress. And I was really disappointed about that because there was several opportunities where she could have done something badass, but she didn't, and she just kind of seemed like a typical damsel in distress. But those are just my initial problems with it. What were your problems?
Definitely agree with the Luna thing. She just seemed more of like just a background character, kind of like at moments.
I mean, if this character is going to be so significant, I kind of expected her to have more of an important role than just being the print,
or just have a presence.
Exactly.
You would kind of forget about her.
Yeah, like she would pop like everyone, like when she first shows up, it's like supposed to be such a big deal, and then she disappears and she kind of comes back, and then we kind of got to get her from one place to one place. And it's like, well, she's kind of useless. She's just kind of baggage. She's reminiscent of, like, I hate saying this because she's definitely better. She's kind of reminiscent of Ashley Graham from Resident Evil 4, where she's pretty much useless. And every time she gets in trouble, she's like, oh great, I gotta stop what I'm doing to go save her ass. And I think that happened a little bit too much in this film, to the point where, like, if she's going to be in the game for as much as I think she's going to be, is she going to have a similar role, or she's just going to be kind of useless? Because we're not even sure if she's going to be playable. As far as we know, she's not going to be playable. But I really hope that they do more with her character in the game than they did with her in this movie.
What else? Well, yeah, I agree with the thing with the Kingsglaive. Like, we only really got to know like two,
maybe two characters. I mean, I was expecting this, like, to actually know at least 3 or 4 characters, like Matt Noctis and his boys. We're gonna have a lot of time to get these 4 characters. I would have liked to have seen a unit like that in this movie, and they didn't really do it. Outside of Nyx, we really don't.
Or at least we even just get to see them go head to head, since they sort of like split.
Yeah, I mean, not to go into spoilers, but there's a point where they're kind of divided, and it's not really explained why. It just kind of like happens like that, and I'm like, what's going on? I thought that there was only like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 bad ones, and then you find out that like
the whole
thing was infiltrated. I'm like, what's going on? Just like there was like no build up to this.
What else? There's actually a part where, okay, the whole Empire thing, he could have killed everybody, but he didn't.
But he didn't.
Like, there's a part where pretty much he has swords to everyone's throat, but he doesn't kill him. Just what? He could have ended it right there.
Oh, that goes into wait a second. We're getting a little distracted. That goes into probably one of our major positives. I think we both can agree we absolutely love the use of magic in this film. Absolutely. I mean, if you're a big fan of the warp mechanic in Final Fantasy 15, if you've played the demo, they totally amped that up, and it is incredible. I mean, I like how they have these special knives, and every time they throw them, they actually go teleport with the weapon, or they can teleport to the weapon's location. And I thought that the way they used it in so many creative ways, I thought that was pretty incredible. And to kind of see the main first battle between like machines and magic, I thought that was just absolutely phenomenal, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see more of that in the game.
Yeah, the climax battle too, that was awesome.
I think it was great. I just think it was a little bit muddled because it kept jumping between 2 different battles. It was like you had a much smaller frame battle, and then you had a much bigger battle. And
but the fact that the larger scale battle used sort of the same mechanics.
I like that it was using the same mechanics, and I also like that the smaller battle was kind of happening in the midst of the much bigger fight. Like, without going too much, there's a battle between a number of gigantic, I don't want to spoil it, but let's say entities. And you have the final climax battle between, I'd say, probably the main antagonist and the primary protagonist, and they're fighting on top of these entities. and I thought that was pretty interesting. But because it was moving around so much, it was a little bit hard to follow at times. But I think overall, I think it was very well handled overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got anything in the negative, since we kind of jumped a little bit more back into the positives because we enjoyed it so much? You got anything else?
Well, the CGI was good. I mean, at the beginning you'll notice but like you'll get over it.
Yeah, you get over it.
I like the music.
Oh yeah, oh definitely. There were a lot of that kind of goes into my positive about the Easter eggs, because aside from having a number of like really iconic monsters, there's definitely a number of Final Fantasy tunes you'll absolutely recognize, and even some from older games, which I was like, you know, when I heard that, I was like, oh my god, they brought that from this game, or they brought this from that game. They just tuned it up a little bit to make it a little bit more modern, and I really appreciated that.
It's just I didn't really have a whole lot of negatives.
I mean,
at least nothing that like really stood out to me.
I mean, yeah, as I said before, my main negative about this film really just does with maybe a lack of character development, and really just affecting how I'm going to play Final Fantasy 13. I know for a fact that going into it, it probably is a little bit more spoilery than it meant to be, and that's absolutely going to affect my playthrough of 15. But I don't think too much that I won't enjoy it as much, because trust me, it's still my most anticipated game of this year. I think we're both really pumped up to play it, but just for me personally, I know it will affect my playthrough. So you got anything else to add?
I would expect it to have some type of spoilers for the game.
Yeah, like I'd like it to explain maybe events before the game, but this is the first time we've had a story that's significantly taking place during the game, and you know these events will affect the game significantly.
So I expected spoilers for the game.
Yeah, but I didn't expect this much, because like, I mean, off camera I'll explain to you kind of like my how I think the game is going to work and why I think it was a little bit too spoiler. But overall, I think we can both say that it was very, very enjoyable. I don't know what the critics are talking about, because this movie has been getting bashed by the critics, but I really enjoyed it. So are we ready to get into ratings?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to give our ratings now. So if you could give it a letter grade, what would you give Final Fantasy 15 Kingsglaive?
I would give it a B.
You give it just a solid B?
A solid B.
Okay, I'm going to give it a B minus. It's definitely worth a watch. However, I would caution you that if you have not played the game yet, or if you have no way of watching the movie now, personally, I would wait until you've played the game first, then watch this movie. But if you choose to do it in reverse, that's okay too, because that's what we did. But now that I've seen it, part of me kind of wishes I had waited till the game came out first, but that's just me. So that is our review of Final Fantasy 15 Kingsglaive. If you like this movie review, feel free to like, comment down below, and please subscribe to my future videos. And I'd like to thank my bro once again for joining me, and we'll surely be doing more videos together while I'm still here. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.